I can, including a Nintendo Switch as well as an AN Neo, so I can compare ergonomics, as well as a thermal camera. They won't let me open it, even though I did bring my iFixit kit just in case they were gonna allow it. They didn't. I'm putting it away, I'm sorry. Okay, so at least maybe I can show you guys, you know, hey, where's the cooling system? Where are the hot zones? These are early units, these are engineering units, so these are gonna be far from the final experience, but I mean, I'm gonna be one of the first in the world to even touch RDNA 2 hardware running on an APU. This is a game changer. Just like our sponsor. Thanks to Signal RGB for sponsoring this video. Signal is a free application that syncs RGB lighting across your entire setup and works for brands like Corsair, Razer, Logitech, and more. Check it out at the link in the video description. First things first, they are not going to let me directly capture off the device today. Hopefully that, along with the disassembly, is something that we can follow up on for you guys in the future. But what we can do is we can record the gaming experience. This is it. This is me picking it up. Immediate impressions, absolutely raw. Ergonomics of the handles of the controller itself, I think they've actually done a really outstanding job. I mean, it shouldn't be a surprise. The ill-fated Steam controller, for all of its quirks, was absolutely a comfortable controller to hold, and in spite of the fact that my hands are pretty small, like I am easily able to reach everything from these thumb pads to the joysticks, the D-pad and ABXY. I mean, if you're a retro gamer, if you want to play, you know, emulated SNES games or anything like that, this is what you're going to be into. And ooh, the feeling is actually pretty good considering how early these units are. The D-pad is smooth to roll but has a good click for each individual direction. The ABXY, I can tell these are a little bit early. You can see, you can actually feel it. The B is a little bit different. It's a little bit wobblier. You can see it's actually a little bit of a different shape compared to the other ones. It looks weird, but it actually feels exactly like the other ones to the thumb. So no problem there. I like these Valve guys. I walked in and they said, no, 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 no. And then all of a sudden they were like, okay, well, you can try your monitor. And they're saying you can try to capture. It's not gonna work on this unit, but we might actually be able to do it on the desktop docked one over there. These are in sandbox mode, so we can't have the desktop experience. So that's the thing you guys gotta understand. This is not a game console like a Nintendo Switch, where it's this completely locked down thing. It's gonna run a custom version of Linux, so all these games are gonna be running through the Proton compatibility layer, but fundamentally, this is just a PC. It's a Zen 2 CPU with 4 cores, 8 threads at anywhere from, I believe it's 2.4 to 3.5 gigahertz. It's gonna have some kind of RDNA 2 based GPU integrated into it, 16 gigs of LPDDR5 memory, and that bit is critical because it's actually running at 5,500 megatransfers per second quad channel. That's insane. We've actually never seen, to my knowledge, outside of bespoke console chips, we've never seen any kind of PC built with that kind of memory bandwidth to an integrated GPU. And you gotta remember, an integrated GPU has to share bandwidth with the CPU, so the more you can have, the absolute better. Now, in terms of storage, they're gonna have 64 gigs of eMMC on the 399 unit. That is not gonna be enough. Thankfully, the microSD expansion card, yes, right there, you can actually see we're using it on these demo units, is going to allow you to install a much larger game library than that, I mean in the terabytes. But micro SD, I mean, especially when you consider the way that game development is going, relying on these super fast SSDs in the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series it doesn't feel very future-proof. If I were you, I'd go for the 256, which is gonna be $529, or the 128, which is gonna be $649. Now that SSD is not upgradable, but I can pretty much guarantee that the good folks at iFixit will find a way. A couple more housekeeping items. It's got a 40 watt-hour battery, which is fairly comparable to devices like the AN Neo. And this USB-C port, which is used for charging, is a bog standard USB-C port. So that means you could use it with standard peripherals like, check this out. Here's a random 5-year-old USB hub. I'll plug it in, and boom. I am using my mouse, which is important, and I will show you guys why this mouse is so important later. I mean, really, a huge part of the story here for me is the sheer choice available to the gamer. Even before I plug in a mouse and navigate the interface using that, I have 3 different options for navigation. I can use the D-pad, I can use the thumbstick, I can use the touchpad, which I think they've still got a little bit of tuning to do on the haptics, but it is a very interesting feel. Definitely a step forward from the Steam controller of yore. Yeah, it's got a little bit too much like kind of vibration and not haptics right now. We're gonna tune it, he says. Yeah, I bet they will. Turning around to the back, we find a little confusing thing that may or may not get changed with the final units. Our whopping 4 buttons on both the right and left sides. So you got your L1, L2. This is an analog trigger, so it's gonna be great for throttle control and things like racing games, as well as L4 and L5 here. Is L3 bound to something else? It's bound to pressing down the stick. There you go. So it's just a little bit of a weird numbering thing. There are, in fact, 4 buttons down to each side, and it's kind of up to you to decide how you want to use them. After all that, I forgot about a control scheme. Touch. You can scroll through your game library, click on it, and boop, why don't we play some Doom Eternal? Now, Valve has taken some criticism for this move, with some people saying that 1280 by 800 is not enough resolution in the year 2021, but I'm gonna defend them here, just like I did with the AENEO, and just like I did with the Nintendo Switch OLED edition. At this screen size, it is enough, and from my perspective, I would much rather be running at 60 frames per second more often, it's a 60 hertz display, compared to running at 30 frames per second and 1080p. And we are still limited by, what is fundamentally an Ultrabook crammed into a handheld gaming console. How awesome is this? They're at exactly the same spot as my save game on the AENEO, which is just right near the beginning of the game. This is cool. This gives us a look at the pause menu, so we can adjust screen brightness, audio. Oh, that's right, it does have built-in microphones. At least 2 of them. I can't remember if there are more than that for noise cancellation. I do not see any others, but it does at least have a 2-mic array. Wi-Fi, Bluetooth. There's an advantage over the Nintendo Switch. Can you even believe the new OLED one is not going to support Bluetooth headphones still? I mean, talk about things that make no sense in 2021. That right there. We can turn haptics on it. Well, I want haptics on. Okay, now something that is built into this game conveniently that they didn't tell me I'm not allowed to turn on is performance metrics. Oh, hold on a second. We got to tune this first, though. This is an ugly default setup here. You know what? Let's tune them both at the same time. Okay, yeah, running at native resolution, that is not going to be a thing. Overall quality medium. Apply changes. Yeah, go ahead and roll. I mean, this is the experience, Ed. This is what the people want to see. Okay, so we're getting anywhere from around 40. We're seeing some dips down to like 20. That's pretty much to be expected. I'm actually going to turn these speakers down. They do sound great, though. I mean, you do end up with a much larger face than something like the AENEO, but the speakers are pointed at you. So it kind of comes back to the old HTC One experience. Is it worth it to you to have a big speaker grill looking at you and actually be able to hear what you're listening to, or do you want a kind of a sleeker looking device? The weight is good. It's got a good size to weight ratio. It doesn't feel cheap, but it also doesn't feel too heavy. I have not compared the FPS numbers, looking at exactly the same thing yet, but running almost all medium. I turned off motion blur because it's for plebs, and tuned a couple of other little things, but mostly medium, and I locked it at native resolution. Valve had it set to dynamic resolution, which doesn't tell us anything about Hold it! Hold it! Hold it!
Objection!
Take that!
Objection!
Take that!
Objection!
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 Objection! Objection!
Objection!
Objection!
Hold it! Hold it! Objection! Action!
Hold it!
Hold it! now. Hold it! Well, now.
Excuse me.
Objection!
Hold it! that!
Was hat denn der Kunde?
Objection!
Objection! Take that!
Objection!
Objection!
Objection! Objection!
Objection!
Hold it! Hold it!
Hold it! Well, no. Excuse me. Hold it! Wait, that ain't... Excuse me! it! Objection! Got it!
Hold it! Hold it! Objection!
Objection!
Objection! Objection! Objection!
Got it! Objection! Objection! What's going on?
Get the fire brigade!
Water! Bring water, quick!
What the? How did this happen?
I don't know, sir. By the time I got here, it was already engulfed.
No one was supposed to be allowed in here before we started investigating.
No. Oh, good God.
There's someone in there.
Oh. This can't be.
This is a
This is Jonathan Ferguson, the Keeper of Firearms and Artillery at the Royal Army's Museum in the UK, which houses a collection of thousands of iconic weapons from throughout history. And on this episode, he's going to be taking a look at the weapons of Far Cry 2, complete with all the outrageous jamming and exploding gun animations.
So in this detonation animation, the entire front end of the gun has blown off, which I don't think is likely.
If there are any other games, guns, and mechanics that you guys want to see Jonathan break down, let us know in the comment section below. Be sure to subscribe for more videos like this one, and if you'd like to help out the Royal Army's Museum and continue to support Jonathan's work, check out the links in the description of this video. Right, over to Jonathan.
Right, we have a slight variation on the 1911 theme here, and it's one of these, the Star Model B. Now in the sort of idle or opening animation, we saw the player character thumb the hammer back and then manually decock it. Good start. But then as soon as he starts firing, the hammer stays where it is. So the hammer, the developers are aware of the hammer and how the hammer functions to fire each cartridge. What they've misunderstood here is that, well, two things really. Firstly, this is a single action pistol, so pulling the trigger does not cock the hammer. And secondly, even if it was a double action trigger, once you fired the first shot, the gun cocks itself. The ejection port is on the wrong side. This is one of those games that suffers from left-handed syndrome, which, as we think we've discovered, may originate in the Counter-Strike series of games. Another mistake is that the slide never locks open, which it should do on this pistol and most other pistols, and we've already seen several examples of a jammed slide. Probably not a super common malfunction. Generally, if the cartridge fires, all of that energy has to go somewhere, and generally that's some of it's going out the front for obvious reasons, and some of it is cycling the slide. So that would have to be fairly badly rusted shut to not actually cycle. And once you've broke the rust free, almost certainly it is going to cycle after that. It's a good effort to introduce deterioration. You can visibly see that the model is rusted, it's not in a good state. Would it complete a full cycle and properly extract, eject, and load the next round? Quite possibly not, and that would be the sort of malfunction that I would expect to see. Not the slide jammed shut, but the slide not moving smoothly enough to allow the weapon to function correctly. Yeah, so once a gun deteriorates to the point where it's jamming frequently, clearly it lets go in a spectacular fashion. So if you look closely, you'll see that the way the model comes apart doesn't make full sense. There's a big chunk missing out of the chamber that doesn't look like it's damaged. It looks like it's modeled that way. The barrel stays on the gun as though it was a fixed barrel blowback firearm, whereas in fact on this thing it's a John Browning style tilting barrel, and if the gun were to blow up to that extent that the slide goes flying off, pretty sure the barrel is coming with it. I mean, it's inserted into the slide for one thing, so the whole thing would just come off and you'd be left holding the frame. But that said, I've never seen a game model a catastrophic failure of a firearm at all, so they deserve points for that. So it might seem like heresy, but Kalashnikov pattern rifles are also capable of jamming. An interesting mixture of yanking on the cocking handle, not a bad idea, and tugging on the magazine, not going to achieve anything. The magazine on the AK is locked into the weapon, tapping on it, banging on it, not going to do anything. Hitting the charging handle, absolutely. You would probably go from yanking on the charging handle to what they call mortaring it, where you stick your thumb over the cocking handle and bang the butt into the deck, and that gives you the inertia necessary to overcome the stock bolt. So it looks it's like action movie level plausibility of like, I don't know, Back to the Future, where the terrorist with his AK gets a jam and he just starts sort of slapping the gun in frustration. It's better than that, but it's not realistically modelled. But again, the fact that they have gone to the effort to try to model weapon deterioration and failures is still pretty impressive. Okay, so I've got the AK catastrophically exploding in front of me. It is freeze framed at a point where what I'm seeing are artifacts of the 3D model. So what I think is meant to be the bolt is actually just a thin sheet with a handle on the end of it. It should be a solid chunk of metal, or a chunk of it if it's somehow blown up that badly. The top cover has come off in one piece, which makes sense. But then underneath, you've got this shelf. So above the fire selector, it should be a U-shaped bit of metal with the trigger mechanism sitting inside it. There's none of that. Interestingly, they've textured that flat shelf that shouldn't exist, and I don't know why, other than I suppose it would be glaringly obvious if it was just white. Superficially, doesn't look a million miles away from some of the very few occasions I've seen videos of AKs exploding. But the bolt is not modelled as a bolt. It's just looks like a cover, and it slides within the 3D model. The Ingram Model 10 submachine gun. I like the rate of fire. I quite like the way it's been implemented. We get a good view here of what a deteriorated gun looks like in the game. That kind of attractive patina all over it. And we get to see another explosion animation. And I can see a nod to a barrel chamber in the now completely empty ejection port. Like the bolt has somehow exited the weapon out of its own ejection port, which is impossible. The cocking handle has disappeared, but the bolt wouldn't magically leave the gun. Maybe it's somehow just destroyed the spring and is stuck in the back of the receiver. I don't know. But I have a feeling it's blown out of the gun. We've now got the FN FAL, or something similar to it. Doesn't look quite right. There's something a little cursed about this model. The buttstock looks like it's almost like shark skin or something. The handguard's made out of the same stuff and is just like weirdly puffy. Don't know, it almost looks upholstered. Yeah, ironically, the mirroring of guns, the flipping of the model in this, means that the otherwise very ergonomic for its day FAL, where you can use the cocking handle on the left-hand side and the ejection's out the right, is not a thing, and the right-handed player is having to reach over the receiver like an AK to cock it, which is the other way around. The AK has that problem. So that's just a quirk of the way they've mirrored what it looks like is every gun in the game. So in this detonation animation, the entire front end of the gun has blown off. Don't think is likely. Barrels are either threaded in and torqued up to a certain spec, or they are pressed in an extremely tight fit, meaning that it's more likely that the back end of the gun, the receiver that's sheet metal or thin machine metal, is more likely to give way than the relationship between the barrel and the barrel extension or the trunnion or whatever the barrel is attached to. So it's not a hugely probable way of a gun exploding. So an extremely shiny looking Desert Eagle that the player looks very proud of and even gives a little polish to. Most of the main sort of angles on the gun are there. You definitely get the idea. But I think the very front end, that sort of iconic muzzle, I don't think they've quite nailed the look of that. But it is close enough. This is recognisably one. They're not doing a Soldier of Fortune on it and trying to make it look like something completely different. The whole thing is really lethargic as well. So when you shoot this thing, you know you shot it. It pivots up very, very quickly. It doesn't kind of slowly come up like Clint Eastwood miming the recoil of his Magnum, which is what I'm seeing here. And the slide moves faster than your eye can see. A very common mistake in video game models is that you see a slide or a bolt moving as though it's slowed down. Right, so the Deagle is no more. The Deagle has exploded. And I think that's probably the more realistic of the explosion animations that I've seen so far, in that it might happen that way. The slide coming off, in this case, the barrel is not in the slide, so the barrel does stay fixed to the gun. That's part of its design, and it would only be the slide itself that would come off the back of the gun. So our old friend, the Spas 12, or something close to it, we have got more than just a stuck bolt or slide. We are seeing a stovepipe jam, a failure to eject. So you see the red plastic hull of the 12 gauge case stuck in the gun. It appears to be stuck between the face of the bolt and the ejection port, which could happen, I think. And then we see some reasonable attempts to clear that by yanking on the cocking handles, turning the gun over and slapping it. Not so helpful, because if it's compressed between the bolt and the gun, it's not going to just drop free when you slap it. You do need to hold the bolt open and do that to try to get that empty case out of the gun. This is a slightly cursed RPG-7. The iron sights are for some reason on the side of the launch tube. They should be on the top. So this is one of the few weapons in the game that's not mirrored, but to make up for the fact that it's not back to front, the player is holding it back to front. So he's made the rookie error, and perhaps that's because his character's not familiar with the type, I don't know, of holding the grips the wrong way round. The munition itself launches like a rocket, rather than shooting out of the end like a large bullet and then the rocket motor kicking in. So we see with the reload animation, we see the warhead being loaded. It doesn't quite look right. They haven't just got the warhead portion, which is a mistake other games have made. They have got the tail fin on there, but it doesn't look right. It doesn't have the long flick out stabilizing vane fins that should be there, which should be under a cardboard sheath to keep them in place, which just blows off when the thing is fired. And I don't think we should have that much recoil. There's virtually no recoil from an RPG.
Hey, I'm Rod Ryan.
We'll
Welcome
see
to
some
Storm
if
Mountain.
there's some damage to either the warhead or the
Lock
launcher,
slide.
and it's not
Rip the
balanced
magazine out.
correctly. You'll see perhaps a
Work
bit
the
of movement,
slide.
but
Wrap.
this is
New magazine.
modelling recoil,
Cap,
more
rack.
recoil than we'd expect to see from a recoilless weapon. which
Okay,
is
now
what the
people say, well, why do you
RPG-7
take a knee?
actually is.
Because this takes a little bit longer to clear than the stovepipe or failure to fire with the tap rack bang.
Right, so we don't, luckily for the player, the RPG doesn't explode. I guess they figured that that would just take you out, which is true. So instead we see a sort of dud round modelled, where it kind of plops out of the end and then fizzles around on the floor for a bit before exploding. I don't know if that's plausible or not with a PG-7 round. Don't think so though, because it's 15 meters down range before the motor kicks in, which means it would just sit there as a dud, shouldn't explode because its nose hasn't been crushed, and it wouldn't have armed yet, so it should just sit there being a bit of a risk as a piece of unexploded ordnance, and you just stick another one in and carry on. I don't think it could possibly do what it does there, but it makes for some dramatic gameplay as you try to get the hell away from your rogue bomb, essentially. I think the M79 makes a lot of sense for an open, relatively open world game like this, giving you a bit of distance, but something to bridge the gap between an RPG and a firearm. We don't seem to be using the sights. It's just a kind of a dead reckoning, point it in the vague direction of the enemy, learn your fall of shot kind of thing. You can tell that the modelers have not got hands on a real one, or just aren't worrying about that level of detail, because the break open latch just stays to one side and then the gun opens, whereas it works like a shotgun. You hold it against spring pressure and break it open that way. Alright, so I was waiting for this to happen. We've got a point blank, or that's not the correct definition of point blank, but it's not the time or the place, firing of an M79 into somebody, and it blows up. Now it's designed to not do that. It has an arming distance, minimum arming distance for safety purposes. Some blunt force trauma from a large bullet hitting you, but not a penetrating wound, hopefully, and not an explosion, unless something's gone horribly wrong. At this point in gaming history, I don't think that level of realism had been picked up upon just yet. Okay, this thing is weird. This looks like somebody saw an AR-15 once and then tried to make a video game gun based upon it. The bolt appears to be part of the receiver, or there's some weird kind of cover going on that doesn't work like an AR normally would. It's got the M16A1 onwards forward assist, but it's weirdly tiny and isn't in a position where I think it would necessarily work, not with this weird bolt anyway. And then the cocking handle is this bizarre looking bit of sheet metal that's also really small. Yeah, very strange. You can see features of AR that have been sort of mutated into something else. So we've got some sort of a failure to extract, and they're removing the magazine, they're pulling the cocking handle to the rear. All, so far so good, but then they're pressing the forward assist, which would be counterproductive because that's a forward assist, not a rearward assist, and would therefore be acting against you trying to pull the bolt to the rear to clear the stoppage. But at least they recognised that the forward assist is useful when a weapon fails to function correctly, even if they've combined the wrong malfunctions.